We will never allow industries, corporations, or elected officials to speak on our behalf when it comes to clean water, clean air, the very existence of our people.
One for Mum, one for Dad, and one for the country.
And there has never been a more exciting time to be an Australian.
Budgets are about choices, Fran, and you show what you value through the choices you make.
This is coal. Don't be afraid. Don't be scared. The Treasurer knows.
I want an economy that works for people, not the other way around.
We'll just end up being a third-rate economy, a banana republic.
Just follow the money.
G'day, I'm Ebony Bennett and welcome to Follow the Money, the Australia Institute's podcast that explains economics, politics and policy in plain English. It is clear to Australians that big gas is taking the piss. Multinational gas companies get over half of our gas for exports for free, yet our domestic gas bills have skyrocketed. The industry is an absolute climate and economic disaster, and it's destroying priceless cultural heritage such as the Murujuga rock art as well over in Western Australia. But the industry's awful track record extends well beyond Australia's borders.
A tense standoff continues in northern BC today over a planned LNG pipeline.
The demonstrations here today are in reaction to yesterday's bylaw enforcement by the RCMP to remove two blockades set up by members of the Wet'suwet'en First Nation.
I think the humanity within the RCMP, the province of British Columbia and Canada itself, is gone. I think the democracy of Canada is being threatened because they're listening to a corporation.
In Canada, traditional custodians are fighting with the government and industry over gas developments that put their land and livelihoods at risk. The Canadian government is developing its own gas export industry.
Now, Canada, let me start with our position as an energy superpower. We're starting to realize our full potential in both conventional, i.e. oil and gas, and clean energies. LNG is an essential fuel for the energy transition.
Protesters are taking aim against LNG expansion, accusing the province of siding with U.S. billionaires over British Columbians.
But the custodians don't want to head down the same path as Australia. They are fighting against a huge pipeline and export terminal project, which is being driven by Woodside and others. On this week's episode, we had the privilege of hosting two of those First Nations leaders. Hereditary Chief Na'Moks of the Wet'suwet'en Nation and Gibuu Jesse Stoeppler of the Gitxsan and Wet'suwet'en Nations and the Skeena Watershed Conservation Coalition. They were joined by Kai Nagata, energy campaigner for Dogwood, a not-for-profit dedicated to climate justice, Indigenous rights and democratic reform. Our guest spoke with Australia Institute co-CEO Leanne Minchell about why the gas developments don't make environmental, economic or moral sense. We pick up with Hereditary Chief Na'Moks describing the special land of the Wet'suwet'en Nation.
We have 22,000 square kilometers of territory, and that is unceded and non-treaty. We had a court case, was settled December 11th of 1997, and it proves to Canada. We went to the Supreme Court of Canada to prove we exist. Even though we've governed the lands for thousands and thousands, we had to prove to Canada that we exist. We've never given up our authority. So the province of British Columbia, where we are, and then so-called Canada, they only have assumed and presumed authority. We've never given that up, and the Supreme Court proved that. We also re-signed a memorandum of understanding in 2020. My signature is on that, and it says the exactly same thing. And it's because they do have projects, whether it be oil, gas, or mining, forestry, that they simply go ahead and do, and it's illegal, and they lock us up. I do invite the people to watch our documentary Yinta on Netflix, and it shows 10 years of us documenting this one fight and the very fact that they treat us less than human on lands that we govern and we have forever, and we always will. We will never allow industries, corporations, or elected officials speak on our behalf when it comes to clean water, clean air, the very existence of our people. And that's what drives us to do trips such as this, to investigate and follow that money, because that is dirty money and it is killing our people and it is adding to the destruction of this planet. We're doing everything in our power to prevent that. I just want the humanity put back into the government and into decision making and not have the dollar bill more important than this planet.
And I think it's a fight that's shared by a lot of First Nations people in Australia as well, and some of the companies that you're pushing back against. I guess it's a story that's being replicated not just in Canada but in other parts of the world, and definitely it's been played out here in Australia previously, and it continues doing that. And in a minute, we'll go on to talk about who you'll be visiting in Australia. Just on the documentary, I actually tried to watch it on Netflix, and unfortunately you can't get it in Australia. So if people want to go to our website, thepoint.com.au, we'll at least put a link up there to the trailer and you can see some parts, and hopefully we can ring Netflix and get them to let us see the documentary in Australia.
Well, it is 10 years of filming to have our narrative out there.
Yeah.
Right now you have governments controlling the narrative and industry, and their viewpoint that everything is fine and come and invest your money and you'll get a good return on is absolutely untrue, because they are putting amounts of money that are in there that actually belong to other countries, and there will be no return. The only ones that are suffering are ourselves, the people of Canada.
Yeah.
And it's all subsidized by all Canadians. And I think the world needs to know that the only way that they're trying to do any kind of business is to give these incentives to make it sound there will be a good return. There absolutely is not, because the market's crashed.
Yeah. And is the Gitxsan Nation, Jesse, is that beside where the Wet'suwet'en Nation is as well? Can you give us some feeling of some context around that?
Yeah, indeed it is. The Gitxsan and the Wet'suwet'en, as Chief Na'Moks had mentioned, are direct neighbors. We share a boundary, and more interestingly than that, we share a lot of history, all of that as allies. Denise Na'Moks mentioned the Dogwood Supreme Court decision that was led by Gitxsan and Wet'suwet'en. The Wet'suwet'en have roughly 22,000 square kilometers of territory that was defined on a map during that court case, and the Gitxsan roughly 33,000 square kilometers. And this footprint has and brings a lot of responsibilities to our hereditary leaders, but it also has economic value to so-called Canada and so-called British Columbia. And that is where we find this conflict most often, by assumed and presumed ownership and decision-making that cannot be within this elected government, that could be provincial, federal, or even within band constitutions that govern the Indian Act on behalf of First Nations people.
We used to build big things in this country, and we used to build them quickly. It's time to get back at it, and it's time to get on with it. From now on, Canada's new government starts by asking ourselves for major projects, how? How can we do it bigger? How can we do it faster?
Premier David Eby is defending the government's approval of a new pipeline project that will supply natural gas to a proposed floating LNG terminal just north of Prince Rupert.
Silisms will become Canada's second largest LNG facility, with a capacity to export 12 million tons of LNG every year to new markets.
Could one of you, perhaps for the listeners, take us through, we've heard a little bit about your homelands and how special they are. Could one of you take us through an overview about what this fight is about? What are you facing at the moment?
Pretty simply, it's to put the humanity back into it. We cannot make decisions that is going to destroy everything and make everybody equal. The way they're making us sound, we're less than human. That dollar is more important than the human and the future. You know, the very fact that we have to do what we're doing when we should be at home enjoying our lives, enjoying our clean air, drinking our water, eating the food that comes from the earth, instead of being out here to tell our truth, because they're definitely not doing it. We want truthfulness. We want humanity. It's pretty simple, right? But they don't understand that. When they say common sense, it's not common to them.
Yep. And Kai, if you're sitting at home at the moment, back where you're from, you're looking out you're looking out on one landscape. What's being proposed? What are you trying to stop happening in that area?
As Na'Moks mentioned, we live in a place where you can still drink the water and eat fish that swim right up to your doorstep. And that is pretty rare on this planet. And right now, all of that is being threatened by global oil and gas companies, including companies from Australia, who want to come and frack and build pipelines and gas terminals and destroy all of that on the basis of some really dubious economics. And so we're trying to defend Indigenous rights, protect our home and the people that live there, and also save taxpayers across BC, Canada, and Australia from projects that we think are a dead end and are very quickly going to become obsolete as renewable energy technology takes over. So wrong project, wrong place, wrong time. We're trying to get the word out to the people considering these investment decisions before they lock us into another 30, 40 years of burning gas.
And how long is the pipeline that they're proposing?
They're hundreds of kilometers long.
Okay.
One's 700, one's 900 kilometers.
Right.
And so, yeah, that just represents a very, it's a very long linear disturbance of watersheds, which are all linked together. And so just to explain that, the entire province of BC is made up of these interconnected watersheds that are home to wild salmon. And when you cut and trench across all of those different tributaries and streams, you disrupt ecosystems that have sustained life for thousands and thousands of years. And it can't be repaired in the way that the industry would like to claim that it can. And we've seen that destruction already in Wet'suwet'en territory.
So at the one existing terminal on our coastline, which is home to the facilities for LNG Canada Phase 1, we now see and hear reports of higher cancer and asthma rates. People report that it hurts to breathe the air. This terminal has only been in semi-operation since July of 2025. And we're trying to sum up the cost, not financially only, the cost of these projects. And at this point, it is entirely carried by Indigenous people and Canadian taxpayers at the benefit to foreign ownership that stuff their pockets. Currently, most of that is going to Wall Street billionaires.
And even aside from the fact that the company and the Canadian government are breaching the law by undertaking activities on this land that they have not gained permission to do, the economics behind it aren't terrific anyway. I know that there's a lot of talk in Canada, just the same as there is in Australia, about how this type of extractive industries are somehow the backbone of the Canadian economy, just as they're the backbone of the Australian economy. But a lot of research from the Australia Institute shows that if you take away the subsidies, it is in fact, and the lack of jobs, the jobs are always overblown, that it's not an economic boom for Australia. Is that the same in Canada?
It's absolute bust. And I think this is a chapter of a global playbook that capitalism functions on. A certainty is probably what creates this environment. But for provincial and federal governments, we continue to see these projects really being socializing cost while privatizing benefits. And British Columbians and Canadians are not having any more of that. This has been going on for a very long time. But since our greater economy adapted and changed a little bit, Canadians simply can't afford this anymore.
Yes, yeah.
And that's not even from a moral perspective. This is just the plain numbers.
A lot of people are understanding that it's pretty crazy these days to be developing any new fossil fuel projects, and you're going to end up with stranded assets. And without that government underpinning, I don't know why some of our countries are so wedded to extractivism. Maybe it's our colonial past and we think that's all that we can do. But I agree with you. It completely doesn't make economic sense anymore.
Maybe just in quick addition, the British Columbian and Canadian government likes to make this about so-called economic reconciliation.
Wow, that's I haven't heard that term.
Yeah, neither have we. We're also not seeing it. Reconciliation does really not exist for Indigenous people, for original title holders within our country, and to add now economics to that is absolutely bottomless.
Yep. Yep.
If you add economic reconciliation, it goes into the playbook as alternate truth.
Right. Yes. It's funny adding another word to reconciliation when we don't have basic
I
reconciliation.
don't even understand
and then
what
putting
reconciliation means, really, because what have we done wrong other than being born Indigenous?
Yes.
Why do we have to reconcile for that when we try to protect and they want to take?
Yeah.
And it's being delivered at the barrel of a gun to our people.
Yes. Kai, I might bring you in for a moment here. What brings you to this fight?
Well, we're all neighbors and friends. We live within about a 15-minute drive around the town of Hazleton. And so my family came to Canada over 100 years ago as migrant workers, like a lot of people in different parts of the British Empire at the time. And, BC and Hazleton were founded as gold rush towns. And that mindset, I think, really underpins the Canadian economy and always has. So like Australia, we're, a former British colony that's now home to these global corporations that have just exported that model. We call it rip it and ship it, show up in somebody else's land, extract the resources, and then you're gone. And as we deal with the tariff threat from Donald Trump and larger economic uncertainty, our governments have gone right back to the 1860s in searching for a solution to kind of juice the economy in the short term.
That's because the world, U.S., changing rapidly. And so we must change our strategy dramatically. That starts with getting out of the way. For too long, the construction of major infrastructure in Canada has been stalled by arduous and inefficient approval processes.
What they're doing is removing all of the hard-won environmental protections, trampling Indigenous rights, and really tying themselves in knots to try to finance these foreign-owned gas terminals with the argument that this is going to create jobs and it's going to generate revenue for the government. And it's completely backwards. And we're using the threat of the United States to justify subsidizing American-owned LNG terminals. And that, to me, makes no sense at all. And so we've been traveling around talking to some of the investors and some of the owners, but also trying to meet with people who are affected by the same companies, because the companies are global. We were just in Malaysia talking to Petronas and people who've been campaigning for victims of a huge pipeline explosion in the outskirts of Kuala Lumpur. These companies affect all of our lives. We are all, I think, bound together by this global rush for fossil fuels. And so we're trying to build common cause and learn from other communities as we travel around, and also, bring the fight directly to the people who are financing these projects.
Well, it is a global problem, as I touched on before. This sort of international extractivism with little benefit for the Indigenous or non-Indigenous population is a global story. But focusing on Canada just for a moment, haven't you got a great new Prime Minister, Mark Carney, who's a climate change champion? That's what I've heard.
Quite honestly, it's Carney and his carnival. You never know what kind of show they're going to put on day by day. He is the one that actually, at a stroke of a pen, told us, because we traveled to Gatineau, Quebec, from one end of the country to the other, to be in the same room when he sat there and basically said, Indigenous leaders who are elected, I'm hereditary, we went there because we were not invited. We are hereditary leadership. We went. They have no right to hold meetings like that without us in the room. So we went there, and he basically sat there and said that we were criminals because it is now the law to distract, destroy all human rights, all protections are gone. Because to follow up what they did with Royal Canadian Mounted Police for ourselves, the Wet'suwet'en, they created another arm of the RCMP, which is armed force. And then they bring in mercenaries. They burn down our homes. They knock them down with heavy equipment. They come through our doors with axes and power saws. Every time we step outside, I have a sniper. And that is our new normal? I don't think so, because that money is resources that belong in our country and can be used, and they are not renewable. We got so many options out there right now. They are just refusing to do it because of a global market that is in glut right now, and there is no finance behind it. But they are willing to put everyone's lives and freedoms at risk just to hit a market that doesn't exist, as if they're going to boost it up. No, that market has failed. It will never recover, and it is not renewable. It is a finite resource, and they want to deplete it. At one time, we were not the leaders in oil and gas. Now we are, because they depleted throughout the world.
Yes. And they always call it natural gas terminals, as somehow that makes it better. And when I was watching some clips last night, I actually saw a really horrifying clip of 3 women in a room not much bigger than the one that we're sitting in now, and what looked like military-grade police officers or militia outside, and they broke through the wooden door with a chainsaw, and it was like something from a horror film. And these 3 brave, calm defenders were dragged off, and I suppose they've been prosecuted in some way. It was disturbing footage, and again, I'd encourage people to go and try and find the film if they can. If not, try and find some of the trailers that I looked at.
And maybe just as a quick addition, I really appreciate that you shared this the story about the 3 women that you saw in this clip. It's really important for us to mention that we come from a matrilineal society, and within our homes, within our society, within our governance, it's almost always females and women that make and carry the decision and often the consequences that are attached to that. And Na'Moks and myself and many others, Kai, try to do the best we can to share that burden and to get this messaging out to the world. It is within our history of Indigenous people that the continued oppression in light of industrial boom has these horrible effects on humans, and it's absolutely very important to us that the world understands that you cannot mess with our women anymore.
I saw
We're
Molly.
here to make sure that it doesn't happen.
Yeah. I saw one of the women in it, Molly, I think her name was. I wouldn't mess with Molly.
The life of Australia's largest oil and gas project will be extended
until 2070. The move is being welcomed by Woodside Energy, as you would expect.
The government says it's done its due diligence, but critics say it could ruin some of the oldest art in the world.
People look at the Mona Lisa as something really incredible. This is a Mona Lisa, but it's on a natural landscape. That's the canvas. This is the beauty of it. When you look at the rock art here, it's telling our story. This is our Bible, this is our cathedral, and this is who we are.
What brings you out to Australia? So we're very happy that you're here. Tell us a little bit about why you've come to this side of the world.
Well, you have a global gas giant called Woodside, we've been learning about, and they're one of the backers of a new pipeline proposal that goes right through our backyard. And so, I live in the Kispiox Valley on Gitxsan territory, walking distance from the proposed PRGT pipeline, Prince Rupert Gas Transmission. And Woodside is one of the fracking companies that has big upstream leases, and they want to be able to get their resource to the coast, to a gas terminal. And so they're part of this consortium that's backing this American-owned gas terminal and pipeline. So we have been invited to Karratha in Western Australia to go and see for ourselves how Woodside operates on unceded Indigenous lands. And so Raylene Cooper from Save Our Songlines has invited us up. We're heading to her territory tomorrow, and we're hoping to get a look and a smell of how Woodside treats people's traditional lands, so that we can bring that story back home and warn people about who we're dealing with.
So we've got Woodside wanting to frack gas in what to me looks like a fairly pristine environment.
Used to be, yeah.
Used to be. And they want to put the pipeline isn't already built. It's another pipeline that they want to build.
That's right. It's a proposed, 48-inch pipeline.
And then it will go to a new terminal that's already built or is wanting to be built.
No.
So this is like right from scratch,
yeah,
a massive new fossil fuel project at a time where everyone's trying to get out.
That's the way Canada puts it. They've made a decision, so it's already done. Actually, it hasn't been done.
All right.
Where we live, the Gitxsan territory, the Wet'suwet'en territory, we drink out of every creek, river, and lake. That's how pure we keep it.
Yep.
And this is what they're destroying. We have 2 of the largest salmon runs in the world, wild salmon, in these rivers, and that's what they want to destroy. And the very fact that they could put out the narrative that it's a done deal no matter what happens. Guess what? We're alive, we're here, and we will stop it.
Yes. I'm very glad you're going up to see Raylene Cooper. the Australia Institute went and made a documentary there around the Murujuga artworks.
That's what we're going to see.
Oh, yeah. It's like the largest, ancient, outdoor art gallery in the world. I think it's got the earliest recorded depiction of a human face. There's an animal on it, a Tasmanian tiger, which we managed to make extinct back in 1930. Tasmania is right down the bottom of Australia, not attached to our landmass anymore. So it's an incredible story. And Woodside and our government, I don't think we can let governments off the hook here, right? So our government, at the bidding of an international gas company, extended the gas terminal out there out to 2070.
Mm-hmm.
And they know that it's going to destroy the artworks apart from anything else. So I think the way that Woodside operates in Australia is pretty much out of the playbook that is being used in Canada. But Canada, to me, sounds a little bit more terrifying than the way that they're treating people out here.
The world isn't aware of how terrifying it is.
Yeah.
For me to know that every day there is going to be something really awful that you would never ever dream of as you're being raised, become your normal and you expect it. Even walking down the street here, if I look at a police officer here, I could look at them.
Yeah.
If I do it at home, I'm challenging them. And they do not play around. They want to pull you over. It's with the pistols out. And it is with the dogs out, because everybody's perception of Canada does not exist. We know that. We live it every day.
We see Canada as I think it was presented as a very friendly, open, democratic, very polite, as kind of the meme that comes out of Canada. But I guess, like Australia, your government's just got a really good PR company.
Well, why is it called progress? You just talked about some destruction of some of the oldest form of tracking in history. And yet the dollar bill can be more important than that. Something that has been there and raised and people are well aware of, oh, guess what? Just turn the page. That means nothing to us because our investment means more.
Just staying on investment for a moment, because the finance isn't settled for this project, is it? Are they still looking for new investors to come into the project?
That's right. So there's both the second phase of the Coastal GasLink pipeline and the LNG Canada terminal, which goes through Na'Moks' territory. And then there's also the PRGT pipeline and the LNG, the Ksilisim's LNG terminal, which would go through Jesse's territory. And so both of these projects are waiting for final investment decision. And our government at home is doing its best to fast track them in order to lock down that investor confidence and bring in that foreign money. And so this is a really crucial window right now, because they're trying to tell the world the Indigenous problem is settled. We have consent from all the communities along the route. Nothing to worry about. If anyone gets in the way, we've got a militarized police squad to deal with that. They're going internationally right now and telling the same investors it's safe to put your money in, and don't worry, you'll be backstopped by Canadian taxpayers, so you can't lose. And we're trying to present an alternate perspective, which is that you're going to lose your shirt and your reputation, and your own taxpayers in countries like Australia and in Malaysia are not going to forgive you when they realize that they've been lied to.
So on top of everything else, your worry is for market transparency. Is there any message that you would like the investors to hear?
For myself, it's simply give money a conscience. You're the human. Be the human. If these were your children being affected, your ability to drink clean water and breathe clean air, what would you think? Make it personal to yourself and come from that perspective. We're all human. And I think the way that industry and elected governments who are only there for 3 and 4 years and then, their life is done, they're ready to go on and move on, and yet we suffer forever. How could I talk to a grandchild and say, I did my best, and yet this still happened? How could I witness this? Just sit back and allow it to happen. As a hereditary chief, our duties is to the land, air, water. Myself as the human, I am so far behind our duties, because that duty is to that land and that future. You often hear of Indigenous people thinking 7 generations ahead. These people are now only looking at an election cycle. Look at that orange, evil person that lives south of us that is controlling a country. Him and his tiny hands are destroying this planet. And yet it's all for a dollar bill, because billionaires got tired of being billionaires and now they want to be trillionaires? Give me a break.
I think that Canadians are well aware of the fact that we cannot any longer operate on and abuse the misconception of who Canada is as a country and its reputation when we deal with foreign investors and our neighbors. And anytime we have the opportunity to address investors, it's very clear that they have been grossly misinformed by industry and by the Canadian government that continues to use decision-based evidence-making when it should be evidence-based decision-making.
One other thing that we've been doing on this trip and earlier this year in Japan and in Korea is speaking directly to Canadian consular officials. So high commissioners, ambassadors, and trade officials whose job is to sell Canada to the world. And not just as a sort of marketing scheme, but really sitting down in the room with these companies and these investors and trying to remove the barriers to that foreign investment. So, they're there to, as they say, promote Canadian values. But really what they're doing is a sales job for Canadian resource extraction. And we're trying to remind them that, you haven't been back home in a while, so you might have missed a few things. But the vision that you are selling to investors is highly misleading, and you're doing a disservice to the Canadian public and to Indigenous nations across the country by pretending that these issues don't exist and sweeping them under the rug. And so it's one of Na'Moks' strategies, and I think it's been really effective in giving them some pause in terms of the story that they're trying to tell to investors like Petronas, to people like Woodside, as they consider these final investment decisions on big gas projects that carry a lot of risk.
That's where we'll leave today's episode. Thank you so much for joining us, and a huge thank you to our guests for visiting us here in Canberra. If you want to hear more, head along to Trades Hall in Melbourne at 6:15 this Thursday, the 11th of December. More details are in the show notes. Our latest book from Australia Institute Press, A Time for Bravery, What Happens When Australia Chooses Courage, is available for sale now. Usually $35.99. For a limited time only, you can save $5 off our latest book with the code POD5. That's POD5. You can order now from australiainstitute.org.au/store or via the link in the show notes. This episode was recorded on Friday, the 5th of December, and our theme music is by Jonathan McBeat from Pulse and Thrum, with additional music from Blue Dot Sessions. I'm your host, Ebony Bennett. Thanks for listening.